Remember the original Armada? That thing was new back in 2004 and it soldiered on for an agonizing 12 years. Well, this week Nissan has finally given me the redesigned version. It got a full redesign for 2017 and it looks ready to do battle with the likes of the all-new Expedition that I actually tested a couple months ago. So was this new Armada worth that long wait? That's what we're here to find out. So the first generation Armada was actually based on the Nissan Titan pickup truck. It was essentially the same vehicle, just with an actual shell over the bed, whereas this new one takes a completely different route. It's now based on the Japanese market Nissan Patrol, and because of that, it's now built in Japan as opposed to being built in Mississippi like the original model. Now you can see the design of this all-new Armada is certainly very much similar to the Infiniti QX80. If you guys keep score, that was also based on the Nissan Patrol, and we've seen that here in America since 2011. So even though this is an all-new truck, it's technically just the Nissan version of the Infiniti QX80, but Nissan of course gives this its entirely own unique styling language. You have the corporate Nissan V-Motion grille. This particular Platinum Reserve has some dark chrome finishes to kind of differentiate it from the rest of the lineup. Now a couple of things I'm going to notice here as well. LED headlights are actually standard on all Armadas. They're just an LED low beam, but you do get an LED daytime running light. The Infiniti version kind of gives you full LEDs. You also have some halogen fog lights, where the Infiniti gives you a full LED fog light for the lower front fascia. And overall, I think the Armada certainly has its own unique look to it. Some people have said it was handsome. I don't particularly love it. I think the refreshed QX80 looks a little bit better. I just think it's a lot more sophisticated looking and a lot more premium than this. This is kind of more of a truckish look to it. Now, the Armada is pretty damn big. Compared to the old model, Nissan actually shrunk the wheelbase a little bit, but they increased the overall length. It rides on around 121-inch wheelbase, and its overall length is around 209 inches long. It's actually about an inch shorter than the all-new Expedition I showed you, although it doesn't quite look as big as the Ford. Both vehicles are around 80 inches wide. This new one is around 2 inches lower than the old Armada, which kind of gives it more of a squat down appearance, something a little bit more sporty. I guess if you could say something like this is actually sporty. Now looking at the rear of the vehicle, when this first came out, I saw a lot of similar design features as like a GMC Acadia with these taillights. They're not a full LED taillight like you get on the Infiniti version, but I mean overall, I think that the design certainly has that traditional Nissan look to it. I do find that the bumper is a little bit high for the load floor, and then you don't get any kind of exposed exhaust tips like you get in some of the other competitors. Now looking at the trunk here, the power tailgate obviously is included on my particular tester. And then when you actually look at the cargo area, with the third row seat up, you're looking at around 16.5 cubic feet of space. It's around 3 less than what you get in an Expedition. You can also fold down these seats, which they are power folding on the Platinum Reserve that I'm showing you, although you can't actually do both sides at once. Now when you fold down the third row, the space roughly doubles. You're looking at around 38 cubic feet of space, and then if you fold everything down, it expands to around 95 cubic feet of space, around 10 less than what you get in a Expedition, or if you guys go for an Expedition Max, that goes at around 130 cubic feet of space. So overall, the cargo area, not quite as big as some of its competitors, but still very useful for sure. So my Platinum Reserve tester does come standard with Nissan's Smart Key Access System with push button start. As you can see, here is the current Nissan key fob, definitely due for replacement, even though the key itself is still a nice size. You can see remote start is included. To activate the remote start, just push the lock button, then push and hold this top button here. And the V8 engine comes roaring to life. If you want to turn off the car, just push and hold this button again, and that will shut off the car for you. Now, like every other intelligent key system, just keep the key fob in your pocket. To lock the door, there's a button here on the outside of the door handle. To unlock it, there's no sensor on the back of the handle. You have to touch the button again. and that will unlock the door for you. Now, looking at the interior of this Platinum Reserve model, you can see it is very, very Infiniti-like in here from 10 years ago. Now, the cabin definitely makes a nice first impression with the seats on the Platinum Reserve. They're quilted Napa leather, they're heated and cooled. It has some nice embroidery badging here in the actual seat back. And the actual materials in here are pretty good. There's some faux wood grain accents, there's some nice contrasting stitching, and overall you're going to be pretty impressed with what you get when you're first stepping inside. Now, getting inside, there's actually a nice little running board here, there's a nice grab handle here, so you kind of have to just let yourself, or pull yourself in, and then when you shut the door, it's nice and solid sounding. This car's platform is pretty old, but this is the Nissan Patrol and other markets, and it really shows that this is a great platform to start with. Now, to start the vehicle up, just put your foot on the brake and push this button here to fire up the engine. Now, I'm really impressed to say that, honestly, this interior, if you just cover up this Nissan badge here, it looks like an Infiniti from about 10 years ago. This reminds me a lot of the Infiniti G35, the second gen, especially the gauges look like an Infiniti minus the purple accents. In fact, I actually had the Infiniti QX80 last week, although I didn't have it for enough time to actually do a review. I'll do that later. Honestly, aside from the Nissan badge and the different shifter and slightly different leather interior trim, the two vehicles are identical. Now, a new feature for 2018 is this right here. It's the rear view camera, rear view mirror. Now, if you don't like the camera system, you can kind of just flip it down. It goes back to traditional mirror. This camera is definitely new. I don't remember if the QX80 had it. I'll have to double check. I don't remember because I only had that vehicle for a few days. But this literally is just taking a page from Cadillac with the rear view mirror. It's a nice little addition, and it actually adds a little bit of tech to this interior because the rest of the cabin here is honestly very dated. Now, in terms of the materials, it's pretty solid. You have soft touch graining materials here on this part of the dash, on this part of the dash. There's some nice real stitching here with leather accenting the actual dash that goes all the way down here along the center console. The door panel is also soft touch here on this upper portion with some faux wood grain accents. There's some nice leather here with a gathered look here, which does look a little dated. It's nice and padded down here. The windows are one-touch automatic for all four. There's also a power folding mirror switch here, which is great because this car is relatively on the wider side. There's some good storage down here. Your seat controls are down there. Down here, Nissan likes to bury some controls that are out of your sight. You can see the heated steering wheel control is there. The around view system switch is there. There's some other headlight adjustments right there. The steering wheel, as you guys saw, is power, tilt, and telescoping, which is definitely nice. It just looks old. I mean, the buttons here on the side, this turns on all your driver assistance. This has the newer version of the Infiniti predictive forward collision alert system. It's basically an Infiniti system. It's similar to the Infiniti QX80. Nissan just added this for the 2017 or 18 model year. Going to the center stack here, this head unit is probably the most disappointing aspect of this car. It's not even the newer two-screen layout that we've seen in some Infiniti products, and don't even expect to find Android Auto and Apple CarPlay in here. If you go to apps, you can see here it's going to take a second to load, and then all of a sudden it just shows nothing here. Or there we go. So there's all these different pages here, but only one page actually has stuff on it, where it shows like an app garage, phone information, and settings. I mean, most of the times I had it on the audio display here, where again, this is showing a head unit display, which is very similar to what I saw on some Infinitis 10 years ago. You can see the screen itself is pretty small. This is like a 7-inch screen, which is tiny in this little dashboard display. All your different radio sources are up here. And then if you go to the nav setting here, you can see here, or go to map, the navigation display is just really, really old. Seriously, it looks like from 2005. Nissan just really needs to get rid of this. They need to completely re-overhaul their infotainment system. Some other Nissan products like the Maxima does have Apple CarPlay. I haven't had a chance to actually show you guys the new Leaf. That also has a newer Nissan head unit, but come on, this is seriously old. Now, pushing that button here shows you the 360 camera display, which is definitely necessary in a vehicle this large, which is good. It shows you all the quadrants. It's got moving object detection. It has trajectory. It has parking sensors. It doesn't parallel park itself for you, which I didn't expect. Nissan really doesn't do that kind of technology just yet. But nevertheless, this infotainment system is just super, super old. I could go on about that all day long. Now down here you can see it's pretty logically laid out. All the buttons in here are well labeled. There's a volume knob there, a tuning knob. You have an actual, it looks like a 6-disc CD changer, or maybe just a single disc. I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if it was still in here. You have dual zone climate control down here. You have 2 USB ports, a power outlet. Your heated and cooled seat controls are right here. Again, they're kind of ripped off an Infiniti. The shifter also came off of an older Infiniti product, although the newer Infinitis now have a different shifter. Down here you can see this is your 4-wheel drive selector knob here. It comes with an automatic setting, and then this car actually has a 4 high and a 4 low position. There's a snow mode position. The shifter, it's controlling a 7-speed automatic transmission. Thank God it's not a CVT. It does have a manual shift mode, no paddles on the wheel, and no sport mode. Now, opening up this large little door here reveals 2 cup holders, a little bit of storage, and then pushing this opens up another little storage area there for keys or for change and whatnot. The center console here is nice and padded. There is decent storage in here. Nothing too fancy. It doesn't actually slide or adjust forward, but it's at a good position. The glove compartment in the Armada is also huge. It's not lined with felt, but it is damped. And then the seats, I found them to be very comfortable, very supportive, although no massaging seats in this particular car, or in even the Infiniti version. They don't offer massaging seats, which would be nice. And then up above you, just a standard size sunroof. No pano roof is available. I mean, overall, the interior is definitely roomy. It gives you a nice view of the road. It has solid materials quality, but honestly, in terms of the technology, this truck is seriously lacking in that department. So as expected, this type of vehicle is very much used as a family vehicle. So you're probably wondering, how's the back seat space? Well, the second row is incredibly roomy, as you guys can see the space. Now, Nissan makes it pretty easy to get in and out, just like the front seats. There's a nice little handle here. There's a nice little running board here to help short people like myself get in. But once you get in back here, you can see, I mean, it's basically as nice as the front seats. Now, the legroom, as you can see, is plentiful. There's good foot space here. The floor is not quite flat, but my tester has the $500 captain's chair, so you're not really going to be worried about putting someone here in the middle seat. So I can easily kind of cross my legs. There's plenty of headroom. The seats, honestly, are very comfortable, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now, in terms of features, this is the Platinum Reserve. My tester has the rear seat entertainment system, which honestly looks like it came out of something from the early 2000s. A lot of the newer systems I've seen have bigger screens where they kind of look like tablets. Honestly, I would just get my kid an iPad at this point. Now, in terms of the materials, it is all soft touch here with some nice leather. The windows are one-touch automatic. There are heated rear seats back here, 2 level. You can see there's your own separate climate controls. There's your headphone jack here. There's 2 USB ports and then 2 map pockets here. There's also a little bit more storage here for cup holders, and then a nice deep, holy crap, deep storage bin right here where you can kind of hide some things. So Nissan did a pretty good job with the second row. I imagine a lot of kids are going to be fighting for this and not wanting to be sitting in the third row, but let's take a look at that. So this vehicle is huge on the outside, so you're probably thinking the third row is very usable, right? Well, that's kind of depending on the vehicle, because the Expedition that I had a couple weeks ago was really good. Let's see how the Armada does. Now, when you want to get to the third row area, you pull this little lever here. The seat actually just kind of flips forward. So it's nice, but I am noticing the floor is a lot higher than that vehicle, even though this has an independent rear suspension. So I'm going to get back here to entertain you guys and see what it's like. Okay, so I'll get over here on this side so you can see. Now, the legroom actually is not bad. What I am noticing is my knees are up because the floor is a lot higher. And then if you want to put this headrest up here, let's see. So Nissan actually says you can put 3 people across. Because this vehicle is so wide, you could. And honestly, I guess I wouldn't be complaining too much on a shorter trip. But on longer trips, I probably would only want to be back here by myself. But in terms of features, there's no heated rear seats back here, although I am surprised to see Nissan actually uses the same soft leather that they use in the other seats. Sometimes manufacturers will cheap out and they'll put just like a vinyl in the third row. The seat itself has a power recline function though, where you can use this button here and you can make it recline down. So that's actually pretty nice. The Expedition didn't have that feature, but I did notice that there was more space in the Ford. But overall, this is not bad, and it's a lot more space than what you're getting in some of those smaller 3-row or mid-size crossovers. Underneath the hood of the new Armada, things are also pretty traditional. This is an engine that we know and love in the Nissan family. It's part of the VK engine family. It's the company's corporate 5.6 liter direct injection V8, naturally aspirated. So again, kind of a dying breed in the segment. Ford is kind of the first to go with the twin turbo route, but in the Armada, it makes 390 horsepower and 394 foot-pounds of torque. It's about 10 less than what you get in the Infiniti version with the same combination. Now, it all goes out through a 7-speed automatic transmission. Thank you, it's not a CVT. And towing capacity is pretty good, around 8,500 pounds, properly equipped, about 500 pounds less than what you get for like an Expedition. Now, this is a pretty heavy truck. It doesn't have the aluminum features like the new Expedition has, so it weighs around 6,000 pounds, about 500 pounds heavier than the latest Expedition. But with that V8, it has a nice burly note. Let's get out on the road and see how it performs. Oh, and fuel economy, that's one of the downsides of it. It's rated at 13 in the city, 18 on the highway, so you better be ready to bring this thing to the gas station all the time. So I never actually got a chance to show you guys a full review on the first generation Armada, and in fact, that truck was honestly one of the longest running vehicles in America. I mean, that thing went on for like 12 or 13 years on the same platform. And you know, when Nissan finally redesigned this thing, it was long overdue, and honestly a lot of us thought that Nissan wouldn't actually redesign it, but we're seeing a resurgence in this particular class of vehicle. I mean, I just had the new Ford Expedition a couple weeks ago. I was really impressed with it. I wasn't super impressed with the price. The Armada is definitely much more reasonably priced, even though this thing is still pretty expensive, but everything in this segment is pretty expensive. Now, my first impressions on this new Armada, you know, make certainly a good first impression. I mean, this truck is old in other parts of the world, but it's all new here in the States. Although, if I didn't drive the Infiniti QX80 last week, I'd probably be a little bit more impressed with it. Now, the Armada, first setting it on the road, is very, very traditional feeling. It's got a big, burly, you know, 5.6 liter V8 that makes nice noises. It's got a very soft suspension as well. This is one comfortable riding, full-size, you know, truck-based SUV that'll tow 8,500 pounds. It also has a nice big presence to it. I mean, you sit up high, you have a nice great view out of the front. The mirrors are large, although some people have told me they don't like the design of it. But with this 5.6 V8 with, you know, 390 horse, 7-speed automatic, let's take a look and see how it actually performs when you put your foot down. Oh, oh. You gotta love a V8. Man, that V8 makes really nice noises. This is definitely one of the better sounding V8s you can get in the segment. Now, Nissan Infiniti, this is part of the VK engine family. It's kind of a variation of the VQ, but with 2 more cylinders added. They added direct injection for this newer generation, which is why it puts out, you know, 390 horses, 394 pound-feet of torque. It's about a, you know, 50 or it's like a 70 horsepower increase versus the old one. Oh, it sounds really great. And it actually is pretty quick. Now, the 7-speed auto in this car is also a really good transmission. I mean, it is down 2 or 3 gears compared to a lot of its competition. However, I'm so happy that it's not a CVT. Now, the Armada is definitely not a sporty vehicle. However, the steering, you know, as light it is, electric power steering assist as it is, it's not bad. I mean, it doesn't really inspire you to go faster. Nothing in this segment really does, although the aluminum-bodied Expedition did a really good job at that. But other than that, I mean, I actually think this drives pretty nice. It's very comparable to the last, you know, Chevrolet Tahoe that I drove. And the V8 honestly has just plenty of pull. Oh, that sounds so fantastic. Absolutely great. Now, this car doesn't have any start-stop technology. It doesn't even have cylinder deactivation. But I'm going to turn off the traction control here and see if I can get it to spin the tires a little bit. Nope, nothing. Oh, this thing's quick. Now, it feels like this thing gets to 60 in around 7 seconds. The Expedition that I drove with the 3.5 EcoBoost and 10-speed is quicker than this, although I will argue this sounds way better. It doesn't have any kind of artificial noises, you know, or synthesized noises that Ford does with their EcoBoost engine. This is all V8, all displacement. It's a quick revving, smooth engine, much smoother than the VQ on which it's based, which is interesting. Now, going down the road here, the ride is very, very soft. As I mentioned before, it's a very softly sprung suspension. The seats are pretty comfortable. There's good visibility. I mean, this is a really easy car to daily drive. And really what turns me off so much about the Armada is just the infotainment system in this thing. The instrument panel is old. The head unit is old. I mean, everything in here is just taken from an old Infiniti. Now, in terms of the driver assistance tech, most of them will have this you know, predictive forward collision alert with automatic braking. You know, it has lane keep assist, lane departure warning. It has full speed range adaptive cruise control. And this car also will do what Infinitis will do, and that's when I have all the system turned on from this button on the wheel, it will actually come to or like brake for you automatically, even though I don't actually have the cruise control on, which is nice because it kind of shows you that Infiniti and Nissan is heading toward full semi-autonomous driving, which I haven't actually had a chance to try something with their ProPilot Assist, which is new yet for 2018. But in terms of the driver assistance tech, this thing is not bad. It's just, I think Infiniti or Nissan, I keep calling this an Infiniti because it feels like I'm driving an Infiniti. I think Nissan really missed the mark when it comes to the infotainment system here. Now, let's talk a little about the fuel economy because this thing is a thirsty beast. It's rated at 13 city, 18 highway, and I've only been averaging around 14 miles per gallon in my week's worth of testing, which is definitely a good 5 miles per gallon less than what I got in the Expedition a couple of weeks ago. So that EcoBoost engine in the Ford is much more efficient along with that 10-speed auto, but come on, you can't really beat the sound of a V8. There's just something about a V8 that just sounds so much better. But regardless, overall, I think the Armada is still a pleasantly driving vehicle. I like the fact that it's a lot less expensive, and if you can live with the dated technology in this thing, I think a lot of people in this segment are going to be pretty pleased with what Nissan offers with the 2018 Armada. So at my current stage in life, I probably would never have actual use for a vehicle like this, but every time I actually have one for a week, I'm reminded just how incredibly useful these type of large three-row truck-based SUVs can be. Now, after spending a week with the all-new Armada, I'm happy to say that this is a pretty strong contender in this segment. Even though it's all new, it has a lot of quirks about it that kind of remind me that this is an old platform. The interior is honestly the biggest offender, with that infotainment system kind of being the biggest annoyance since it doesn't have Android Auto and CarPlay. It has a lot of old menus, and honestly the instrumentation cluster, they didn't even take what you see in the current Q50, which is honestly old. Infiniti and Nissan just need to completely redo their interiors. One thing I also don't like about the Armada is the fact that this bumper is so high, although it is nice if you just want to come over here and sit on the bumper. I barely have to fall in, but I'm only 5'7". That may not be the case for somebody who's taller. But with all that said, what's it gonna cost to put the Armada in your driveway? Now, first of all, this vehicle is actually pretty inexpensive. A base model starts at around $46,000, which makes it around $4,000 cheaper than a Sequoia. The Sequoia, that's a lot older than this vehicle, although if you guys want something like the new Expedition, that's around $52,000, so the Armada is a great value to start with. Now, of course, with that value, you're going to get a vehicle that isn't the most fuel efficient, as you guys saw in the test drive. It's rather thirsty, although the V8 makes good noises, but it's going to get smoked by something like the EcoBoost twin-turbo F1 or Expedition, which is just a lot quicker with its new 10-speed. Now, this particular one is the Platinum Reserve model. It's about $3 grand more than the actual Platinum for just some chrome trim, some different interior in the leather and some different colors. I probably would just go for the Platinum, which starts around 62. This particular Platinum Reserve doesn't really have any options aside from the Reserve package, and it stickers for just a tick over $67,000 with the $1,200 destination, which again, sounds like a lot of money, but keep in mind, I had a new Expedition a couple weeks ago, and that was an eye-watering $78,000. So again, there's a lot of value with the Armada, which is probably why it's been doing pretty well. Now, keep in mind, if you guys want the Infiniti version of this car, it's a whopping $20,000 more for basically just the Infiniti badge, some different leather, a different shifter, and a different instrument cluster. So for me, this one, it seems like the value leader in the segment, and it's honestly not a bad buy if you guys are okay with the high fuel prices. But anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2018 Nissan Armada Platinum Reserve. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, make sure you keep subscribed to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thanks so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.